You're welcome to International Business News. My name is Lekan Onabanjo, and we will start off from United States of America. Inflation in the U.S. accelerated to a fresh 40-year high in May, a sign that price pressures are becoming entrenched in the economy. The Consumer Price Index, a wide-ranging measure of goods and services prices, increased even more than 8.3%, Dow Jones estimates. Excluding volatile food and energy prices, the so-called core CPI was up 6%, slightly higher than the 5.9% estimate. On a monthly basis, headline CPI was up in the U.S. by 1%, while core rose 0.6%, compared with respective estimates of 0.7% and 0.5%. Now, these numbers have heightened fears that inflation may have peaked and that the U.S. economy is nearing a recession. Meanwhile, the UK economy contracted for the second month in a row in April, in the first back-to-back fall since COVID struck in 2020, as the cost of living crisis brought Britain's pandemic recovery to an abrupt end. The Office for National Statistics said gross domestic product, a measure of the size of the economy, fell by 0.3% in April, with all three main sectors suffering a fall in output for the first time since January 2021. April's month-on-month drop in GDP was also the biggest contraction since January 2021 and follows a fall of 0.1% in March. Experts had been expecting growth of 0.1% in April, but the ONS said it marked the first time GDP has fallen for 2 months in a row since March and April 2020, when the pandemic first hit and sent the economy tumbling. And elsewhere, the United Arab Emirates expects to sign 7 extradition agreements with countries around the world this year, underscoring a push by officials to cleanse the country's image since a March grey listing by a global financial watchdog. The UAE has 37 mutual legal assistance and extradition accords in place, including pacts with the UK, France, Italy, India, and China. The revelation follows a string of high-profile arrests over the past week in Dubai, the nation's commercial hub. The UAE is now in talks to extradite 2 members of the Gupta family accused of looting billions from South Africa, though the brothers have always denied the allegations. The arrests came 3 months after the Paris-based Financial Action Task Force added the UAE to a list of countries subject to greater oversight for shortcomings in tackling illicit finance. A bit about cryptocurrency. Bitcoin and Ethereum continue to fall on Monday, mirroring a wider global market as investors offload riskier assets following the spike in U.S. inflation revealed last week. Bitcoin plummeted 8.2% to $25,233, while Ethereum fell 9.5% to $1,320. U.S. inflation for May surged to 8.6% on Friday, its highest since level terms in 1981. The S&P 500 took an ugly dive after the U.S. CPI data revived hawkish Fed expectations, and the index lost nearly 2.90% on Friday, even as Nasdaq lost more than 3.5% and Bitcoin tumbled to $25,000. Now, the leading coin gave up 19% last week, while Ethereum retreated 30% in what's been a torrid 7 days for digital currencies. Major South Korean businesses say they are being hit hard as a strike by thousands of lorry drivers across the country is in its 7th day. Car makers and steel producers are among those affected by the industrial action. The truckers are demanding more pay and an extension to government subsidies as they face rising fuel costs. It comes as the country's exports fell by almost 13% in the first days of the month from a year earlier. And now the strike has raised concerns that it could worsen global supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic and the Ukraine war and help to further push up prices around the world. Those are some of the international business stories at this time. You are watching Business Edge. Up next is Money Monday. In case you don't know what that is, stick around. You get to find out. On Money Mondays, we want to talk all things money, be it Naira, Rand, shillings, Pula, CD, Dina, and any other kind of currencies that you would find around. Well, we'll be talking to personal finance experts so that we can all learn how to put a little extra money in our wallets. So we are talking investments, pensions, real estate, savings, budgeting, and much more. For our very first Money Mondays, well, let's talk about the basics of personal finance. So we've all heard about personal finance, but how many of us understand the principles behind personal finance and how it works? So joining us on the conversation is Raphael Emenyonu. I want to believe I got that name correctly. He's the regional head business development in Lagos right here, ARM Investment Managers Limited. Glad to have you join us, Raphael.
Thank you for having me, Lekan.
Beautiful. Good morning. So tell us, Raphael, now personal finance is more than just saving money. It's more than just what comes in and what goes out. And for those who are actually looking for how to make money for themselves, I'm looking for how to make money for myself. Tell us actually, what is personal finance?
Okay. Thanks, Lekan, for the question.
You're welcome.
So personal finance, like you rightly mentioned, is beyond savings. It's beyond what comes in and what goes out. Personal finance is putting money aside in a very convenient manner. Personal finance helps you to make the best use, maximize maximize every kobo that comes your way. In terms of putting every kobo in the right instrument as it aligns with your financial goals. Personal finance, it's a process, it's a journey that helps you to provide for every goal along your financial life cycle, along every stage, as you move on the financial life cycle ladder. So personal finance is something that saves you from depending on other people. That culture of dependency saves you from it. It helps you to prepare for uncertainties. So in case of job loss, you're prepared for it because you've already planned for every goal that you have to achieve as you move on the ladder. It helps you to maintain your standard of living because what you're putting aside is actually what is convenient for you. And then most importantly, it sets you on the path to financial independence, as you move on in life. So personal finance is very critical to our lives. It's something that we need to take very, very seriously.
Well, you say it's very critical, Raphael, but then tell us, what are those basic elements we should watch out for?
So the basic elements in personal finance, I'll start by saying savings and investments. Savings is when you're saving for your short-term goals. Investment is when you're saving for your long-term goals. I would say diversification is also very important. So you don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're saving in stocks, for instance, save in stocks of different sectors, different countries, so that if a particular sector is going down, other stocks are not likely to follow that direction. If a particular country is affected by certain issues, other countries are not likely to be affected by that as well. So diversification is very key. As you do that, you save as well across different asset classes as well. Insurance is also one of the key elements as well in personal finance. So as you try to pull together all these assets to achieve all these financial goals, what insurance does for you is that it protects those assets. It helps you mitigate the risk in a way. So if let's say for instance, you're planning for the child's education and the inevitable happens, the insurance company will be there to ensure that that desire, that dream education that you have for the child is achieved, and the child is able to achieve that education that you've set aside for that you dreamt of for the child. The other areas that are key elements as well is retirement planning, estate planning. What this speaks to is that you try to bring together everything, all those assets in a legal document like will or trust, whether you're still living or the inevitable has happened in a way. Now, this helps you to pass on the assets to your loved ones, to the beneficiaries, without anybody coming, should the inevitable happen, to say, this is for my brother and this belongs to me. So once you're able to put everything together in that legal document, either a will or a trust, it helps. It doesn't have to be physical assets. It could be financial assets as well. So the likes of your pensions, retirement savings account, your bank account, all of these are assets that can go into a will, not necessarily houses and the like. So the moment you get your first job, you start earning, you start acquiring assets. It's important that you set up a will and or a trust, depending on which one is affordable to you. But those are key elements that you need to look at. Compounding again is another one. This tests your patience. This is when you earn interest on interest. So you set up some funds for maybe at least 10% per annum. You don't take the interest, you don't take the capital, you put everything back into it when you're rolling over, so that you earn another 10% on that 10% interest. So this takes you to your destination faster. So that these are basic elements in personal finance that helps you, in growing your assets and ensuring that you achieve the right.
All right, so you talked about diversification, assets, will, planning for the unforeseen future and all that. So tell me, is it actually necessary to have financial goals in order for you to implement the elements of this basic financial planning?
Absolutely. So that's the key driver. That's what sets the journey on this personal finance journey. That's actually what sets up that journey. If you don't know where you're going, because that's the reason you have the goal, that's the reason you wake up every morning and you come to work. So if you don't know where you're going, there's a possibility that you will pass the finish line. You go past the finish line and you don't even know that you've gotten to the finish line. So it's important, very, very important, that the goal is there, you're clear on what the goal is, and then you're able to then begin to apply the personal finance philosophy to achieve that goal. So yes, that's the key driver. That's the main objective.
So tell us, how can we actually set financial goals? What are those parameters that we need to consider? You've talked about the elements now, but then when it comes to setting those financial goals, what are those areas you think we should focus on to make sure that we are able to achieve that desired plan?
So in setting up the goals, the first thing is your goal needs to align with a SMART acronym. Right? So it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be achievable, realistic, time-bound, and you need to be inspired. Realistic in the sense that it's something that you should, within your cash flow, you should be able to achieve, right? And if you feel that you won't be able to achieve it, then there's every possibility for you to look out for a side hustle. So I know a couple of OAPs that are MCs, that act as well, so they're able to, they're MCs as well, so they're able to augment their cash flow from their salaries. So yes, you need to align it with the SMART acronym. You need to break it down to short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Those are also very important, so that you're able to align your short-term goals with your short-term investment opportunities, medium-term goals with medium-term investment opportunities, long-term goals with long-term investment opportunities. And then most importantly, you need to stay disciplined. You need to start early. Don't procrastinate, because there's a cost of procrastination. And then most importantly, again, before you begin to drive your goals, you need to set up an emergency fund. Emergency fund is what helps you to take care of rare occurrences. So if you're able to address those rare occurrences, then what that does for you is that it helps you to allow those goals to run smoothly, and then you're able to achieve those goals at the end of the day.
All right, thank you so much, Raphael, for taking us through the basics of personal finance.
You're welcome.
All right, so to wrap up Money Monday, here we take you through Biz 101. So I want to believe you've learned some business terms there. But then before we close the show, let's take you through NC42 Watch, looking at the top stories that we are tracking at this hour in the business world. Now, Tunisia's balance of trade deficit worsened by 67% to 9.92 billion dinars. That's about $3.25 billion in the first 5 months of this year, from a deficit of 5.94 billion dinars in the same period 2021. Figures from the State Institute of Statistics have shown. Now, crude oil prices set to be staying at $122 per barrel, and this is said to cost the Egyptian budget $7.2 billion. Finance Minister Mohamed Maid told CNBC Arabia on Sunday. Maid said that higher global wheat prices and pressure on the Egyptian pound would burden the government with an addition of $3 billion, as been reported by CNBC. Away from that, one of two South African trade unions reached a 3-year pay agreement with miners by Stillwater, clearing the final hurdle to restarting operations at the company's gold mines in the country. And finally, crude oil prices fell more than $2 on Monday as a flare-up in COVID-19 cases in Beijing shattered hopes for a quick pickup in China's fuel demand, which concerns about global inflation and weak economic development added to the market's gloom. Brent crude futures were down $2.33 or 1.89% to $119.71 a barrel at 0647 GMT, while West Texas Intermediate crude was down $2.27 or 1.88% to $118.04 a barrel. And that's it on NC42 Watch. And I'll hand you over back to Tolu.
Thank you so much, Lekan. And that's it on the first episode of the 1-hour extended Business Edge. And that's something definitely that you're going to look forward to in the coming days. We'll be talking personal finance with Money Mondays. We have Crypto Watch for you that's going to keep you up to date with what's happening in the world of cryptocurrencies. We'll also be focusing on women in business as they do their businesses, the challenges they face, and much more. Tech startup news, we definitely can't ignore that sector and that segment of Africa's economy. So every week we'll be finding out the latest news from the tech and startup industry and space. And of course, the week will wrap up with Stock Market Watch, telling you the movers and shakers, the winners and the losers across the continent and also across the world. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app. You can watch us on other platforms that are available, and you can, of course, go to our website. And until next time, which happens to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. West African time, don't forget, right here on News Central, we put Africa first, and on Business Edge, African business, the economy, and finance is front and center. I'm Tolu Lokwe. Have a pleasant day.